Welcome to the Cross Border Interviews, the show where we dive into the insights of municipal political leaders from across Canada. Now, our mission, quite simple. Shine a light on the dedicated individuals who day in and day out work around the council table to shape the communities that they call home. And for today's episode, we are recording it live at the Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities Association convention, which took place last month, and we are sitting down with Northern Village of Beauval Mayor Rick Laliberte. Across Canada, our cities, towns, villages, and rural communities are alive with stories waiting to be told. Stories of innovation and economic development, resilience in the face of the housing challenges, and the financial hurdles municipalities overcome every day. At the Cross Border Network, we bring these stories to life. From coast to coast to coast, we're connecting Canadians to the issues shaping our communities and showcasing the people working tirelessly to make them thrive. With your support, we can expand our reach, amplify more voices, and shine a light on the challenges and triumphs of municipal life. For as little as $3.99 a month, you can help us grow and continue sharing the stories that matter most. Join us today and be part of this important mission. Together, we can tell more stories, build stronger communities, and make a real difference. Support the Cross Border Network now. Visit www.crossborderinterviews.ca today. Rick, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about yourself and talking about the Northern Village of Beauval. I want to start by talking about you because I want to get to know the man behind the persona of mayor for a second, if you don't mind, because this is your first term as mayor, as you were just elected in November of 2024, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Where did your sense of duty to serve your community come from?
That whole journey started when I was training for the local government administration course to be one of the first clerks, administrators, when the Northern Municipalities Act was brought to Northern Saskatchewan in 1983. In 1983, there was a group of young and willing bright people from the north that wanted to be the clerks, because under the Municipalities Act there was opportunities for the villages now to administer their own taxation, and it was new. Before it was local government authorities, I guess that they call them LCAs, local community authorities. We were switching into our own act, and at that time that's where coming from the recreation world, I was a recreation director at the time, doing sports and minor sports in my community. And the elder statesman of our community said, "Hey, take this course. We're too old to get into university now." So I was just graduated from high school and bright, bushy-tailed, and they pushed me to the front, and I went and took this local government administration in Buffalo Narrows, along with a bunch of other colleagues. And the first day of our instructions was Canadian government, the structure of Canadian governance. And the first chapter showed the job descriptions of a mayor, job descriptions of an MLA, and a member of parliament, MP. And I was just reading these, everybody was into these job descriptions, it was all new for us. And during coffee break, I just jokingly told my colleagues, "I could do that." And they said, "What? The mayor? No. The MLA? No. The MP." So public policy ever since then has been forefront in my thought, trying to see how things work out. I looked at Roy Romano and his leadership in our communities, and looking at the local leadership of my community, how it evolved. So seeing the North develop, and then how policies were made and legislation was made, that has been an adventure ever since.
Now, this is a weird question I get to ask on the show, but you've been around the block for a while. You started in the 1997, and now you're mayor. The role of governments have changed drastically in that time. You can imagine going back to when you were first elected as an MP to when you were elected first time as mayor, the jurisdictional lines have blurred a little bit of what the federal government is responsible, what the provincial government is responsible, what the municipal government is responsible for. Do you see that blurring of lines in that jurisdictional purview of who's responsible for what? Or do you think that there's still that basic understanding of what each level of government is supposed to look after?
Well, that's an interesting question because there's different dynamics in the governance that you're talking about.
Yeah.
The municipal governance, and then you go into provincial politics, federal politics. But a very interesting experience I had was municipal politics and how it's conducted. And then you look at the United Nations, one step beyond federal politics.
Yep.
They're very similar. People are accepted as open-minded discussions. The middle ones, the province and the feds, you get into the party politics. And I think that stirs up the pot a little bit, and even how our parliamentary structure is designed with a governance and an opposition. And then that aisle is designed so two swords, people can get mad and wave their sword at them and not hurt each other. That's an adversarial side of governance. But at the municipal level, that adversity, I don't think it exists so predominantly.
It shouldn't exist.
It's more of a cohesive
Yeah.
circle, right? And that's what I see at the United Nations as well. When I attended the Kyoto Protocol and saw all these countries trying to come to a common ground, I see that's how municipal politics, aside from the party politics, I think that's how true democracy should work.
Do you think the residents of your community get that as well? Because you and I play inside baseball. We love this stuff. We love politics. I love municipal politics. That's why I have a show about municipal politics. But there's a misunderstanding I get from a sense that there's a misunderstanding on the Canadians' part that people don't truly understand what role their governments play. Because you are the closest to the people, you're on the ground, you're not in Regina doing your job, you're not in Ottawa doing your job, you're in your community. People probably will talk to you about federal or provincial issues, won't they?
Well, they do. So here's the other burden of the cross we carry up north. The north is probably more predominant in this than the south.
Yeah.
But the northern communities are made up of municipal communities, predominantly Métis population, and First Nations.
Yeah.
And we live and are related with each other. But our provincial and public policy on reserve is a federal jurisdiction, and then off reserve is provincial jurisdiction. Well, that's the heartache, the heartbreak. We can't plan together. We can't sit together to see the future of where our highways could go, where our cell towers could go, the whole regional development. It just falls apart because of the jurisdictional issues.
So how do we change that then?
I think we change that by, I think there's a concept that came out of northern Saskatchewan back in the 80s, which was called Options 80. And it was a regional government of the north.
Okay.
So if you take the province as Saskatchewan, there's an NAD line. The Northern Administrative District is where the Northern Municipalities Act starts. That's where the Northern Lights School Division starts. And we've created an organization called New North. So that's our boundary.
Yep.
And that starts as well. And just
Buckley
recently...
Blanger is the chair of that, is he?
No, I am.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah. No, Buckley is running for the MP.
Okay, because I saw his name in the news paper, so that's why I thought it was him. So I apologize. Go ahead.
Yeah, he commented. He was at the meeting of the organizational meeting this year. So now the NAD line has followed the federal boundary as well.
Okay.
So now that's the election that's happening now. It's just Northerners, but there's no RM. All the rural municipalities, about 300 rural municipalities, are all down south.
Yeah.
So they have their own set of funding to operate their graders, their snow clearing, plus they get all the natural gas and hydro and telephone lines. But the north, the farmers, have it made, I should say, compared to the trappers and the fishermen of the north and the traditional land users. And that's what I think is missing today, is the opportunity for land use planning, for long-term planning, and revenue sharing. Revenue sharing is a big issue because forestry is all happening in the north, but all the industries are down south. Then you have mining, and so the mining issues, people are going to work up north, and they're not investing in the infrastructure of our community. I saw Uranium City when the whole a corporate community was built. But now they didn't want that. They went to Clough Lake was the next model where they fly in and fly out, and that's what the concept is still on. So in terms of the north, I think there's opportunity for developing a new vision for the North. And I think back in the 80s, as I mentioned, all they were trying to do was create one RM for the whole North. They were going to create a reeve and 5 councillors.
For the entire North?
For the entire North. That was the vision back in the 1980s. And a change of government overnight killed it. So this new government we had a DNS.
I'm assuming Northerners would not be in favor of that type of model for one municipality that large.
Well, they were, because they had no municipalities at all. Back in the 80s, we didn't even have a northern village. We had local community authorities, then we had First Nations.
But that's the changing of the times as well, too, because it's not just Saskatchewan who didn't have there's still unincorporated parts of Canada that do not have municipalities. So,
well, here's the interesting history of all this. The Northern Municipal Council was created back in the 80s. It was functioning. It was ready to get legislated.
Yep.
It was just on its verge. We had a plebiscite or a vote. The communities were in favor of the concept. It died because of a political change. The provincial politics changed. But just before it died, the Inuit were negotiating their land claim agreement in northern Quebec. The James Bay Cree and the Naskapi were negotiating the James Bay Agreement, and the Inuit to the north were privy to the same negotiations. The Cree accepted the reserve structure. They had reserves and a tribal council, so the Grand Council of the Crees. The Inuit didn't want to be corralled into a reserve because they lived off the ice, off the land, off the country. So they came to Saskatchewan to look at the reserve model. They traveled through Beardy's, I believe, Montreal Lake and Larange Band. And then they came up to Larange to see the sitting of the Northern Municipal Council at its beginning stage. And they liked the concept where they were in charge of the whole region, because this was now a regional government. And they went back. It took them 20 years, but today they have Nunavik. Nunavik is a regional government in northern Quebec. And then since then, the Cree, the James Bay Cree, have adopted the same concept to implement their treaty. So that was given root from here. And then about the same time as well, just to the west of us, Alberta, the oil sands were being discovered in Fort McMurray. So Fort McMurray, interested in getting royalty sharing from the oil sands, instead of having a city boundary, they went to the Wood Buffalo County.
Yeah.
So now they have a regional municipality. Well, that's what we were originally asking for, was Northern Saskatchewan to have royalty sharing with all the royalties flowing so that infrastructure and social development could grow in our region. Maybe 2025, this is the time that we take root. It's an old concept and it may work.
I might have to ask Scott Moe that during the press conference today. He might know where it's coming from. Yeah,
everybody likes the hybrids now, so we're in the hybrid era. So that's what I think. The North got into urban municipality. Like we're here for SUMA, we're urbanized. Well, we're off the land as well. So give us a chance.
You're that split between rural and urban as well, right? Because there's no, and I say this with respect, but when you think of urbans, you think of a place that has a downtown core with like businesses, but some smaller urban communities in the north, and I don't know them all off heart, so correct me if I'm wrong here, but they have a few houses and that's considered a village. Well, they have a municipal town hall, which is probably in the community hall as well. So that's considered a community. So there is the need to diversify how we fund different parts of our municipal structure. I completely agree with that.
Like one example I'll give you about the federal and provincial politics dynamics that you asked me about. There's a community up north, Sandy Bay.
Yep.
Sandy Bay, because of the treaty land entitlement, has created reserve of half the community, but it's a checkerboard. It's all over the community. One lot here, one lot there. But the services are all borne on the municipal side: the water and sewer, the garbage collection, all that on a limited budget. Plus, because it's TLE, you have a hard time collecting taxes now because they're all First Nations. It's just that the land hasn't been transferred to federal jurisdiction. So the TLE agreement between the federal and provincial government has to come to conclusion for Sandy Bay. It's got to solve its fiscal and its service delivery problems. It's not a community issue. It's a federal and provincial issue that has to be sorted out to clarify the jurisdiction of a community like Sandy. Like Deschambault was one. I had the experience of sitting on the school board. We transferred the entire community to First Nations. So Peter Ballantyne now administers the health, the education, all the infrastructure in Deschambault. But in Sandy Bay, it's still in limbo. It's in a halfway, didn't reach the threshold or whatever. But we need leadership at the federal and provincial level to untangle that mess that's created because of it, and have the community flourish, because they don't have the resources, they don't have the funding structure, and the tax revenue is diminished because of this stagnation in that community.
And on the flip side of that, you need a provincial and federal government that will actually want to work together.
Correct. Yeah, and that's
the partisanship.
That's the partisanship that just hurts us.
Yeah,
I think it needs to be, you care for all your citizens. Like in our community where we leave nobody unattended. At the United Nations, that's what they strive for. But in the party politics, you got to have the stripes, right?
You do, and that's the great thing about municipal politics, and that's why I decided to do the show is mayors, councillors, reeves, wardens, directors, whatever you call them in your jurisdiction and in your province or territory. They don't care if you're Liberal, Conservative, NDP, Green, Bloc, People's Party, whatever. They want the best for their community. And they don't want the partisanship between the Conservatives and the Liberals to spill over into their communities, but it is, unfortunately. And municipalities are left holding the bag, because if you don't fix it, guarantee you're the first one to hear about it rather than the MP. But I want to just quickly turn to the northern village of Beauval for a second, and I just got to ask a simple question, but before I do, I've got to preface it by saying this. This is a conversation between the mayor and myself, not a motion of council, not a direction of council, not a policy of council. This is his opinion and his opinion alone. He needs a majority of council to vote in favor of any motion, direction, or policy of council. So again, this is just his opinion. For those who are about to send me nasty emails, please don't. I'm sick and tired of them. Mayor, in your opinion, at the time of recording this at the SUMA convention in downtown Saskatoon, what do you believe is the biggest challenge facing the northern village of Beauval today? I've said that a lot, sorry.
Yes, I think it's proper funding for the operation of the northern villages. I think it's land use planning to make sure that we have proper royalty sharing for our communities and a proper tax base that serves our communities. And then the social development side is challenging because we have big city problems now. We have the drugs that are hitting our young population and impacting the complexity of a classroom in a school, the complexity of community programming, even HR, human resources in our community, they're not available to work. So now we're looking at, external resources to bring in to do basic services in our community. So that whole aspect of how a village functions on these small tax bases is inadequate. We got to look beyond. I think there's regional governance of having proper health services, like in our community. We like to spotlight, we can't deliver babies up north. All our community members that
you have to go to Meadow Lake or Prince Albert?
No, North Battleford or Saskatoon.
Really?
So you're breaking up a family, you're putting a burden on other family members while you take this beautiful time of delivering a baby into this world, and we bring him into the city and put him in hotels. Like, not a nurturing place. I grew up at my age, I saw midwives organizing in our community to go deliver a baby in a house, in their own home. And the love that you see from the aunties and the grandmas when they come out, that joy of bringing that life into this world. Today, that's all ripped apart because of a health system that doesn't nurture that. So it's beyond politics. It's got to be the caring part. It's got to have heart. It's got to have empathy.
Can I play a little devil's advocate with you for a second?
Correct.
So you talked about two very big macro issues, and that is important. And I'm not speaking to the converted here because you've been in the House of Commons. The traditional joke is, if you want something done quick, you go to your municipality. If you want something done in about a month, you go to your province. If you want something done in about 6 months, you go to the federal government. But the issues you just talked about need to be done today, not
Yes.
tomorrow, not next week. They need to be done today. What does the municipality's role do today to address these issues? Because I'm not going to burst your bubble, but we're in the midst of a federal election right now, and we do not know what's going to happen after April 28th, and we're probably going to be having this exact same conversations if I came up to Beauval in about 6 months. How do we fix it today from a municipal standpoint?
Well, from a municipal standpoint, I saw the support of creating the new North, the 35 northern communities coming together. And one of the first things that all these leaders said was, we got to partner and nurture our relationship with our First Nations.
Yes,
so we
we
got to
do.
do it together. We can't, that invisible division between provincial and federal jurisdiction, we have to put it together.
Yeah.
And that nurturing, that's where we plan. That's where we plan our health authorities, our recreation facilities, our infrastructure. I think together we have to do it. We can't do it individually. So the whole North, the whole NAD district, and one of the unifying opportunities for us, I think, is the Arctic Winter Games. The Arctic Winter Games, we always assumed that they were Arctic Circle, 60 north.
Yeah.
They're not. It's 55. 55 parallel is the circumpolar world, and it brings in Beauval, Larange. The whole NAD line is part of the circumpolar. And Northern Alberta sends a team to the Arctic Games. Northern Quebec sends a team. It's time that Saskatchewan sends a team, and that would unify the North. It's for the Cree, the Dene, the Métis, the non-Aboriginal. Everybody that lives in the North is part of this initiative. It's not an exclusive; it's an inclusive games. And you take them up north. The next games are in 2026 in Whitehorse. I think it's a perfect opportunity to showcase our children, our youth, that we can come together as a team and showcase it to the world. Plus, there's a void right now because they kicked out Russia. And, you know, maybe Team Saskatchewan could come in. So, Premier Mo, let's take a team, man. Let's go take on Trump's team.
So we talk about the challenges. I love that you threw a Trump reference into that conversation. But anyway, you talk about the challenges your community faces, and it seems to be similar to what I'm hearing across Canada when I speak to mayors and councillors. But what's the thing that's going right in Beauval right now? What's the thing you point to and say, you know what, we have our challenges, we have our healthcare challenges, we have our funding challenges, but we got this going right for us. What's that one X factor that makes Beauval?
Well, our citizens are engaged.
Yeah.
I think they're waking up to the fact of, you know, we're growing into a future that's uncertain, and that uncertainty brings the best in people's ideas. And I think that's what we have to live with, is let's look for a new idea, a new way into a better future for us, a better understanding. We have resources that are immense in the North, but we need a formula that brings some of that wealth into that region specifically. You know, logging is a prime example, because there's not one industry north of that NAD line. Everything is down to the south. So we have to leave some of that wealth up north and have an opportunity for land use planning. Energy costs are through the roof. I look at the kilowatt hour costs. You have 14 cents, almost 15 cents urban costs here. Then you have the farmers that are at about 12 cents. Well, the north, we're burdened with the 14.9 cents as well. We think maybe it should be 10 cents. It should be decreased in the north. We look at income tax rates. Right now we have northern deductions because of the high cost of living. Well, you have miners that are going to work in the A zone in the north, in Clough Lake, Key Lake, Cigar Lake, but they live in the B zone and they have to claim their residency. So it's B zone northern deduction.
Yeah.
We're saying, allow this federal and provincial government adjust that northern zone to the NAD, because we're having a hard time hiring teachers, we're having a hard time hiring health professionals. We've had vacancies in Sandy Bay for the last, I say 4 years. We've had constant vacancies in teacherages, but the other sad part about Sandy Bay is there's not one grocery store. There's no grocery store in a community of 2,000 people. So where's our federated co-ops? You know, if there's opportunity for the province to contribute to our communities, that's what I'm talking about. That's That's the dynamics that people are seeing. They're seeing this federal and provincial dynamic. They're seeing TLE as an impact. But what's the solution? Nobody's coming up with the solution. And I think that's what New North, and that's what I see that municipalities having an opportunity now is let's do something right. Let's work with our First Nations. Let's work together as a whole region, what we can do together to improve our status in this world.
I think you and I will have a follow-up conversation in about a month's time about New North, because I think it's an important conversation. I don't feel like we're doing it justice in this conversation because we're talking about the community. But if you're up for it, let's have that conversation. Before I let you go, because I'm cautious of time, and you're here at the SUMA convention, so I'm assuming you want to get to go back to the trade show or go back into the main session as we pulled you out. What makes Beauval such a great place to it's such a great place to live, work, and raise a family?
It's the name.
Why?
Beautiful Valley.
Is that literally what it translates to?
Beauval, beautiful valley, yeah.
Okay.
It's on the Beaver River. It's part of Treaty 10.
Yep.
And the river starts from Lac La Biche in Alberta. So we get the flow from Alberta, and Treaty 10 is part of the Cold Lake Beaver River watershed. And the people. I look at historical documents, people coming from, the whole historical heritage trail from Big River, and people moving in, prospectors or speculators for jobs. And what they found was a good place to raise your family. People were nurturing. We had a residential school built there, so a lot of our employees had to help raise children that were dislocated because of a federal policy. But the nurturing, my mother worked there for 24 years, and it was that connection with those children. They could speak Cree. They weren't allowed to speak Cree in the playground, but inside the seamstress office, they felt at home, where my mom was darning their socks or sewing their patch on their that little intimate time that they had with that child. And I think that's what's the beauty of Beauval, is that caring, sharing spirit that we had. And it's also home of the Cree, Dene, and Michif. All three nations are equally at home in Beauval, and it's a beautiful place to see. It's the resources are incredible. It's the fish, the fresh water. Well, the potential is so there. There was agriculture there. The residential school showed us that gardens could be made there. There could be ranching, cattle could be raised there, horses. So it's the land and the people. That's what makes Beauval a beautiful place, and that river connects us to Alacrosse, the traditional highway system. We were smack dab in it was the Trans-Canada Highway, I guess, the Churchill River system. It was early development back then. And we still have our language. Kapin Nihtani Hiwanan. My first language is Cree, so, born and raised off the river and moved into town eventually. But that's that land base and that dislocation of the land that today gives us that yearning to return and have responsibility on the land, not only inside the village.
Mayor, I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for sitting down with me and talking. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Cross Border Interviews. Now, if you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. We also want to take a moment and thank the Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities Association for allowing us to come and attend this year's convention in Saskatoon, but also record these great interviews on the Cross Border Interviews. Now, if you haven't already, be sure to follow us on social media. And if you want to learn more about the communities and the people we feature on this show and our sister shows, visit us online at crossborderinterviews.ca. Your support means the world to us. So share this episode with your friends, your family, and yes, even your community, and help keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll be back with a brand new episode of Cross Border Interviews soon. Till then.